All right, everybody, welcome back to Vanland for another episode. This week we're doing another fun project that we want to share with you guys. We're putting the 47-gallon fuel tank on this Sprinter behind me. If you guys drive a Sprinter, you know that the 24-gallon fuel tank that comes with the van is not enough to get you all the way out and all the way back. If you're taking a longer trip trying to get off the grid, you definitely do not want to be thinking about where is the next gas station. In this video, we're going to show you guys a little bit of behind the scenes on the tank going in. We're going to answer some of the common questions that people have, and specifically, does all of the stuff that I want to put under the van, like a water tank and an S-bar heater, is it going to work with this fuel tank? And then finally, we will give you guys our review of it. So let's check it out. Some of the common questions that people have about this tank, number one, I think would be the clearance. How much clearance am I losing by adding this tank? Because even though it's not any wider, it takes up the same amount of space in that direction, it is a little bit deeper. And just looking here, the standard fuel tank basically gives you the same clearance as the pinch weld there. Looking at this one, we're losing about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of clearance overall, which is really not that much. So it's tucked well up above the rear axle and everything on the front of the engine as well. The fuel tank is above it, so I don't think this is the first thing that you're going to run into by any means. You really can't even see the tank when you look underneath. So this rub bar right here, it certainly doesn't drop much below that, so you're getting almost a full clearance with the tank, which is one of the big questions I had as well. So looking at it on a finished four-wheel drive van, the tank is not going to be a clearance issue, so that's a thumbs up for sure. Another question is, will the water tank and other equipment that is typically mounted under here work with this tank? If you're using the RB Components 22-gallon under-mounted tank that fits right here, this does not interfere with it at all. You would be able to use those together. Look at that, perfect fit. No problem. Fuel tank and water tank together. We'll find a spot to relocate our S-bar pump and this job will be done. The S-bar, depending on where you mount your fuel metering pump, we're actually moving our fuel metering pump out of where we would normally mount it to accommodate this fuel tank. So that's something to consider. Some of the lines that you run, especially for the S-bar, may need to be relocated, but kind of depending on how you do it, maybe not either. One other thing, people ask about skid plates. Do I need one for this tank? It's a cross-link polyethylene tank, so it's very strong, it's going to be durable. And the typical skid plates that we use from Van Compass, I don't think are going to fit this. They sort of wrap around the tank, and since this one is larger, it doesn't look like that's going to fit. So yeah, basically all the equipment that you would normally put under here, as far as we can tell, is going to work with this fuel tank. Another question that people have is this a job that I can do in my driveway? And Sam, what do you think?
Oh God, I wasn't ready for that. It's definitely something you would want to leave to the professionals, or it would be a much easier job up on the use of an automotive lift. Pulling this in your driveway seems pretty far-fetched. I'm sure it's possible, but I'd probably leave it to the professionals.
Yeah. It's definitely not a job that I would want to do on the ground. There's a lot of in and out and back and forth, and I think it would probably take at least 3 to 4 times longer without a lift. So this is a project that I would most likely leave to a professional. If you're a DIYer and you're very savvy and have all the right jacks and jack stands, then possibly, but I wouldn't do it without a lift. It would not be fun. Another question that we have had people ask is whether or not the fuel gauge works as normal, and also the time to empty, the miles to empty calculation that the van does on the dashboard, will that work with the new fuel tank? It's going to read the same with this tank as it would with the smaller tank, meaning that When it's full, it's full. When it's half full, it's half full. And when it's near empty, it's near empty. There's really no difference there. However, the calculation of how many miles you have left to drive that the van does, that one will not be accurate to the new fuel tank. Essentially, you'll have twice as many miles as it says. When you do fill up the tank, there is a reserve. After the van says that you're on empty or even below the empty line, there's always a reserve on the tank. So when you fill it up, you may not get a full 47 gallons. It may be more like 44 because a few gallons are held in reserve even when the tank, when the fuel gauge says that you're empty. So keep that in mind as well. You can see it's a chilly day at Vanland today. We just finished the installation of the fuel tank on the Sprinter here and transferred the fuel over from the OEM tank into this one, started it up, and everything worked just fine. Yay, starts right up. For you guys who are wondering, the install took about 6.5 hours to do this with a lift. We did want to also give you a review of the tank. And overall, I think the quality is excellent. Certainly 47 gallons is going to be plenty for anybody who wants to expand their fuel capacity. It went in quite easily. There were no major hiccups. It really is just pulling out the old equipment and putting in the new tank and putting new brackets to get it in. So I would say we'll definitely be using a lot more of these, and it gets an A. It's a great product. So if this is something that you guys are looking for, you can get it from our store. It is probably on a little bit of the more difficult side for a DIY job, so you might want to consider using a professional for us for this job. And if that's the case, give us a call as well. So thanks everybody, and we will see you on the next episode. Bye.